All right. It's Hashem. We're live. And here we go. Okay. Into the Heilige Beis Yaakov. Towards the bottom of the page here. It's Hashem. Okay. So we spoke about how Bahar and Bechukasai, the last two parshas in Sefer Vayikra, because they're teaching us Laharos Shela Adam Achar Kol Avodaso Ein Lo Ela Koach HaTefila. That after all is said and done, all of our efforts, all we really have that really belongs to us is the power of our davening. Moshe Chichu b'Gemara, Ves Kol Bais Gadol Saraf Eish, Chadam HaMishkan Tefila, that the Beis HaMikdash is a place where tefillah is like grown. Zehavi Shemitah and Yovo, and basically this is now we're going to move into this dynamic between Shemitah and Yovo. Ki efshar la'adam lavo el hayovel. A person cannot reach that level that's called Yovel. Ki'im, you cannot reach that place. Ella al yedei sfiras Shemitah. You can't come to this level that's called Yovel, which is what? Which is that consciousness that all I have is my power of prayer. And like we said before, it's an incredibly amazing, deep thing, because the power of my prayer is bound up with HaKadosh Baruch Hu's own prayer. So it's this amazing place of a very transcendent place of awareness that what I do in the world, the davening that I do, the only thing that can be called mine in the world is my davening. And even that davening really is totally at one with Hashem. And we're going to be talking about this at length, what this means and how we get there. The only way to get to that place is through Shemitah. So this means that even though the way we've been describing Shemitah is it's a time of doing no work, but there is a depth of work even to Shemitah itself, that the peace that the heart brings us, the aretz that Hashem gives us, that sense of solidity, of unchanging presence of Hashem that is in the word ani. Ani nosein lachem, the aretz that I give to you. We said the aretz is the heart. Hashem puts into our heart such a sense of His unchanging presence. But the counting of the years to get to Shemitah is not the end. We count 6 years to get to Shemitah, but then we have to count 7 Shemitahs to get to Yovel, which is the 50th year, which is related to the number 8, which is a number that is always a number that is beyond nature. So Shabbos itself is a gateway to something even greater. The Shemitah is a gateway to a connectivity that's mamish actually even greater. And that means that there's still something, so to speak, that we're doing on Shemitah. There's an inner work that is being done on Shemitah, as we're going to see. A person cannot reach the level of Yovel, which means that all I really have, all that's really mine, is my power of davening. Is only through counting Shemitahs, meaning not just counting the 6 years to get to the Shemitah, but counting 7 Shemitahs to get to the Yovel. This means to clarify oneself. This is this very Ishbitz word, levarer, very hard to translate what the word means. Kind of means like to refine yourself. Mikodem, to refine yourself 7 times over. Sheva pe'amim sheva, 7 times, 7 years. Al yedei through this, yuchal lavo toch hayovel. It's only through this that we can come to that place of the Yovel. So that sense of Shemitah, that everything really belongs to Hashem, actually brings us to a deeper place of Yovel where we can understand what really belongs to us, which is our davening. It's a very gewaldic thing. We're going to spend a long time on this. Just like Hashem set up in this world. And here he brings an incredible analogy. Let's say a person davens, I want, please Hashem, let a tree grow, but I don't plant any seed. Right? So, ein amoil, tefillah klal, such a davening will not work at all. And now here he gives one of the most amazing Chassidish answers for why won't that davening work? Why can't I just daven without planting? Why is it that I have to plant the seed? It's not because Hashem couldn't make a tree grow even without a seed, but rather it's because of the consciousness of the earth itself. Listen to how he speaks. It's so amazing. We're going to have to switch pages, which might take us a couple seconds, the technicalities here. Ki haaretz eina mevina tfilas ha'adam. The reason why the earth can't grow you a tree without planting first is because the earth won't understand what a prayer is and what it means that somebody's davening. Okay, now here we got to switch pages, which B'ezrat Hashem will not take us too long. Have it set up here. Come on! I need like those children's books. Hashem. They play a little niggin while you're turning the page. Okay. So, what's this idea that the earth needs to understand my prayer? This is because a person is a speaking being, and the earth is quiet. Aretz hu domemes. The earth is what's called, we call it inanimate. It's a very interesting thing. The word domem in Hebrew, which is the word for inanimate, there's something that I read about that Lubavitcher Rebbe, in Kabbalah, they use these as the four aspects of creation: the domem, the inanimate, the tzomeach, the vegetable, the animal, chai, and then medaber, the human, which is the speaker. So these are the four aspects that correspond to the four letters of Hashem's name. And somebody was translating one of the Lubavitcher Rebbe's conversations, one of his sichos, one of his teachings, and they translated domem as inanimate, and the Rebbe crossed it out and wrote silent. That's a very amazing thing. So the aspect of the whole inanimate world, it's called domem, and he wanted to keep the Hebrew context with the Hebrew, what's the word? The Hebrew signifying meaning of to be quiet, like dom, to be quiet. Fa'arati domemis, the earth is quiet. So in between the earth and the human being, there's a few levels. There's the vegetable and there's the animal. V'yesh b'intayim kama madregos. The rak alidei hazriya, it's only by planting something in the ground that you can then daven that something should grow there. Not just because of the physical thing that you need a seed, but in order for the earth to be able to relate to your davening. It's amazing. Rak alidei hazriya shatfila mislabeshes bo, that the prayer can now become enclosed in the process of the growth of the seed. Shezeh hagarin, this seed, hayam makurav al ha'adam. This seed had come close to the human being. It had become something that he held in his hand, her hand. And the seed, by becoming part of the property of the person, became part of Hashem's promise that He will make us holy. But then the seed gets planted. And the seed now starts to rot in the earth. Right? In order for it to interface, chemically speaking, scientifically speaking, with the nutrients and everything in the ground and the water in the ground, it has to actually decompose. Like the hard layer on the outside of the seed blocks the connection between the DNA and everything that the amazing wonders that are inside a seed. The outside part has to decompose. The garin near kav ba'aretz yesh lezeh tefila gedola sheitzmach b'tza'akaso. So now he says an incredible thing. Not only is the human being davening that this plant, that this seed should grow and sprout and become a tree, for instance, but the seed itself has a cry. The seed itself under the ground is crying out. So it's an amazing um, kind of spiritual discussion of what goes on for something to grow in the ground, that the earth has to be able to relate. And the earth relates to the human being's prayer only through the fact that the earth has a seed in it that is itself crying out. Mamish amazing. The seed cries out and says, why did you first lift me up and let me be in your pantry and be part of your property and be part of the world of the human? And now you've abandoned me and thrown me down into the ground. It had become part of the human being's property. And now, now that this grain grows, and the level of growing things, that's just only one level up from the silent, the inanimate, from the earth, right? Because it's closer to the earth than the human being, the earth can understand the prayer of the seed. Mamish amazing. Because those two levels of the silent and of the vegetable, they're close to each other. They're close to each other. And so therefore, the seed actually will inspire the earth itself to start davening too. How much amazing. The earth itself also starts to daven to Hashem. Yes, help the seed, let it grow. Just like we have in Baruch She'amar, right? If I'm not mistaken, there are 15 Baruchs. Baruch She'amar v'yam Baruch Omer v'oseh. Baruch goes and Baruch Oseh Baruch Merachem al haaretz. What is this? What does that mean? That Hashem has love and mercy for the earth. V'hainu sheHashem yisbarach merachem aleha ayidei tfilasa. This means part of our Baruch She'amar that we say every day. That part of that prayer, blessed is the one who spoke and there was a world, Baruch She'amar v'haya ha'olam, includes in it Baruch merachem al haaretz, blessed the one who has love and compassion for the earth. It means that the Anshe Knesset Agodola, the men of the Great Assembly who put the Shmoneh Esrei together, and put together, not just, they put that prayer, they received that prayer together of Baruch She'amar, it's not Shmoneh Esrei, Baruch She'amar, the beginning of Sukkot Zimra, is they sensed that part of our prayer is, and part of our praising of Hashem is praising Hashem for having love and compassion upon the earth in answering its prayer. As we find by Elisha, the story of Elisha, he's the prophet who was the main student, disciple of Eliyahu Hanavi. Vayikatzev eitz, vayashlech shama, vayatzev habarzel. That there was this unbelievable miracle that happened, that there was a very important building material, a big beam of iron that fell deep into a river. And the people were really upset about it. Back then, a big, huge piece of metal was of great, great value. Today, we have factories, we make them, not such a big deal to lose one, but they really needed it. And the Navi was by there, the Navi Elisha, and they said, can you help us with this? And so what did he do? He cut off a piece of wood and threw it in, and that this caused that the metal beam then floated to the surface, which is a miracle because metal sinks. Even though the whole way he did this, got the metal to float to the top, was only through prayer, right? And this is in the book of Kings, Malachim Bet, Perek Vav, 6th chapter, where that story is. That even though the truth is that the metal beam rose to the surface and floated up to the surface only because of his prayer, Virak, Kevin Barzel, the only trouble is what? Iron, the Barzel, is domain, is silent. Lazos eina mavina tfilas ha'adam. Therefore, it can't understand. Once again, same problem as the earth. It can't understand the prayer of a human being who's too many levels ahead of them in creation. V'rakay de eitz, by throwing the wood into the river, gam shenira gam bo tefila l'Hashem Yisbarach, that the beam of wood davens to Hashem. Shehu shat al pnei hamayim, because it can float. And then he says this amazing thing. It's so amazing how spiritualistic his view is of all of creation. Mistama mispal Hashem Yisbarach shelo yishtafu as hamayim. Says we have to assume mistama. We have to assume that the why does wood float? Because it prays to Hashem, please don't let me fall down, please don't let me sink. That's amazing. So the beam of wood davened, Valyadei also ate, and because the beam of wood was davening, so now the iron would be able to understand the prayer of Elisha that the iron should float up to the surface. Mamish unbelievable. But they also ate Haya Barzal Mevina Tfilas Elisha. Through that beam of wood and its prayer, it was like an intermediary so that the iron beam could understand what prayer is, the prayer of the beam, and then it could understand Elisha's prayer, and then it could be affected by it and itself float up to the surface miraculously. And that was how it was that the metal floated to the surface. So it is in the earth. We cannot make anything grow except through planting. Because it's only through planting that the earth can understand the prayer of a human being. He doesn't say anything about you can't have a tree without a seed. He's saying the seed is only helping because the earth can't understand what prayer is without a seed being there. It's incredible. The Shemitah, and this is what it means when we say that on Shemitah, Nemar v'shavta ha'aretz Shabbos l'Hashem, that the earth itself has a Shabbos to Hashem. I know this means ki shabsosahu lehavayasa. The Shabbos that it has is for its own existence. Ki ha'aretz b'lamazeh, because what is earth in this world? Earth in this world, who b'makom hashpas Hashem Yisbarach, hu aidei pu'ulas ha'adam. The earth is a place through which Hashem puts His blessing, which comes through the deeds of the human being. Only the heavens, only the sky is independent of the deeds of a person. As the Gemara says in Brachos, Moshe Tikkun Yisrael Birkas Hazan. Moshe made in Birkat HaMazon, we have 3 blessings that are biblical and then a 4th one that's rabbinic. So the first one, Hazan, the first blessing, B'shah Sher Lehem Man. When did he make this bracha? When they first received the manna from heaven. And this was something that reached us without any act of a prayer. It came straight from Shemayim. And therefore the nusach, the wording of the blessing is Hazanet kol ha'olam kulo betuvo bechesed, and it's all b'lashon nistar, and it's all in the third person. He, the Hashem, does this third person. Achein haaretz, but the earth, the second blessing of Birkat HaMazon, and this is so amazing, is all in the second person. You ever notice that? The entire second blessing of Birkat HaMazon is all ata, ata, ata. It's totally in the second person. Why is this? Because it depends on the acts of the person. Now here he's relating to the fact that we plow the earth, we plant, we irrigate, and so on, and we take care of them. So that there is such a thing as the acts of the human being that does make a difference. However much pain we put in, that's how much gain. Right? So that's the Shemayim and Aretz that are in the first 2 blessings of Birkat HaMazon. And that's for the 6 years. When we're working the earth and when we're davening about the earth, it affects the earth. And that's our relationship to Hashem that is I, thou, whereas what comes straight from Shemaim, like man, is all third person. He brings us. He brings us the blessing, not you, not ata, the way we relate to Hashem. Fine. What about Shemitah? V'rak b'Shemitah v'Yovel asher az ha'aretz be'atva kabbalas hashpa m'Hashem Yisbarach. On the Shemitah and Yovel, it's not about us putting our efforts in. On Shemitah and Yovel, the earth kind of turns back and is just receiving its blessing straight from Hashem. The kevan shehu betela az lahamatzil, since the earth at that time is in a state of total nullification to Hashem, who is putting blessing into it. Therefore, that year of Shemitah and of Yovel, the earth cannot become something that is in consonance with us. It's not doing that right now. In Shemitah, it's turning back and receiving the light and the energy directly from Hashem. So it's not relating to us and our working and our davening. And if a person will start planting and working the earth in Shemitah, and that's called bothering the earth, it's like bothering you with weekday things on Shabbos. I'm sorry, I'm not in that state right now. Right now I'm singing, right now I'm receiving, right now I'm davening, right now I'm just, it's like a person on Shabbos being bothered with work. If you start working the earth on Shemitah, you're bothering the earth. It's not going to be able to do what it needs to do on Shemitah, which is to just be receiving purely. And if you do that, it won't have the strength to start giving forth its energy in the 8th year. Because on the Shemitah year, the earth is getting its energy direct back from Hashem in order to put out again in the following 6 years. Just like every Shabbos, Mamish, all of creation is getting all of its energy for the next 6 days of the week of Yemei HaChol. Kibo misbarchim yomi nilayin, because it's through Shabbos and through Shemitah that the supernal days, the 6 days of the week, the 6 days, the 6 years of the Shemitah cycle, the 6 Sfirot receive their energy. So we said a lot, and once again, all of this is in order to explain, as we're going to see further, these dimensions of Shemitah and of Yovel, and how the earth in its 6 years. Today we kind of focused on what is the earth doing in its 6 years. In its 6 years, we have to plant so that it can understand the davening, so that it can relate, and so that we can put our efforts in. And that all relates to the second blessing of Birkat HaMazon, where we say Ata, where we're relating directly to Hashem, where we're part of the story of how everything grows. Then in the Shemitah year, by pulling back, the earth is receiving not from our davening, not from our planting, but only directly from Hashem. We must not bother it by trying to work the earth in that time. Gevald, okay, any thoughts or questions before we turn to the halachas? Okay. That's Hashem's Barach. Just now. Okay. So now we are entering into a new area of halacha. Zat Hashem, maybe tomorrow Aryeh will come back and tell us about his friend with the mini greenhouses and how they do the drainage and how that works with it being a potted plant and so on. But now we're going to look at today the mitzvah of Hefker. So the Torah says that in Shmos Chaf Gimel Yud Aleph, Uvashvis Tishmetena Unetashta. In the 3rd year you shall not work the land and you shall leave it ownerless. And now here we have a machlokas rishonim on Shemitah year to have to actually declare it ownerless, or is it something that happens automatically? We saw this when we were learning the Mishnayos. We spent some time on this from the Bavitcher Rebbe. And okay. The Beis Yosef holds, that's Rabbi Yosef Cairo, the author of the Shulchan Aruch. he holds that this verse means that there is mamish a mitzvah on anyone who owns land that grows fruits on Shemitah year to declare it ownerless, which means the wall, everything is still attached to the ground. You have to state in front of 3 people, these pairs shvis are ownerless. Whoever wishes may come and take it. When does that mitzvah apply? The mitzvah applies from Rosh Hashanah and onwards when it has Kedushas Shvis. Now, normally, there are some Rishonim who hold that you cannot make something Hefker on Yantif or on Shabbos. But here, because it's a mitzvah from Hashem to declare it ownerless, and it's not just that I'm, doing a kind of a business-like thing, declaring something ownerless. I'm following the command of Hashem. So here, they hold absolutely no problem, and in fact, it's the right thing to do to declare it ownerless on Rosh Hashanah. So we have an extra special thing to do this year, Rosh Hashanah. I happen to, Baruch Hashem, own a lemon tree. So I'm very excited. I'm going to hopefully be in Uman at the time, but at some point on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, even do it at night too, right when Rosh Hashanah comes in, the moment, right when Shemitah enters, the after Mariv, because we'll daven Mariv right away, is to take 3 people and say the pair of shvis that are the fruits of shvis that are on my property are ownerless. Whoever wishes may come and take them. So it's an exciting thing to do for Rosh Hashanah. Yeah.
So you can only do this if you have property and you are growing trees or vegetables, something that produces fruit.
That's right.
On Shemitah year. Okay. Do you have to own it, or just as long as it's growing there?
It has to be yours. If it's not yours, then probably don't have the right to declare it ownerless, right? So minastam, yeah. So animal food also counts for this, because the Shemitah or the Kedushas Perishvis applies also to animal food. So if you have herbs or things that grasses or whatever things that animals might eat, you can also do that. And yeah.
I don't recall having seen this declaration in the Machzor.
Oh, Gewalt. That's a really good point. I don't know. I'll look into that and see if I could find you a good Hebrew nusach that I'll email you. And V'ezat Hashem, yeah, it's exciting. It's a very exciting thing. Very special Rosh Hashanah this year. Mamash going into Shabbos. Now the truth is that there are Rishonim who hold not like this. They say that it's afkarta de malka. Hashem makes the hefker happen automatically, and it does not require people to actually state that it is hefker. That's the opinion of the Mabit and the Maharit. The mitzvah is to treat it as ownerless, which we'll see in a few minutes what that means. But the declaration is not necessary, because as soon as the moment Shemitah clicks in, it's automatically hefker. The Chazon Ish says that he also holds that the truth is that it's Hashem who makes it hefker, and maybe the Beis Yosef meant it only when its produce growing on land owned by a non-Jew. Okay, but the more modern poskim are holding that you should make the declaration, and okay, can't hurt any case, right? I definitely got Rav Yosef Kairov's pretty important person, the author of Shulchan Aruch. How long are you leaving? When you say this, what do you mean? For how long will those fruits be ownerless? It's not restricted only to the Shemitah year. What you're declaring again is not the trees, it's the fruits, or those aspects that are going to be eaten, the leaves of the lettuce and whatever it is, those aspects that could be eaten, that's what you declare to be ownerless. And so long as the ones that grow or that are harvested on Shemitah are still in the world, the Hefker applies to them. It's not like the moment that Shemitah ends, I don't want them to be Hefker anymore. The mitzvah is for those fruits to be Hefker indefinitely. Okay.
So whatever grew on Shemitah, right, of harvestable fruits,
Yeah.
that's Hefker after Shemitah as well.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter when you actually go to harvest it.
Right.
It grew and it was harvestable on Shemitah.
Right.
Not yours.
So long as it reached its a third of its growth on the Shemitah year, or in the case of a vegetable, even if it reached a third of its growth before the Shemitah year, but it wasn't picked until the Shemitah year, right? So then it has Kedushas Shvis. Flowers. So we spent some time as we were learning when we were learning the Mishnayos, and we'll spend more time on the issue of flowers when we get into the holiness of Shemitah and which things it applies to. But flowers that are grown for the sake of their smell, and some are machmir today with red roses and other types of flowers and herbs that are grown for the sake of their smell alone and not for eating. Red roses are also sometimes eaten, actually, so there's more chumrah there. So then they also need to be declared ownerless from the beginning of the Shemitah year. What about an esrog? So this is a more complex issue. Esrogim, as the Gemara notes at the beginning of Masechet Kiddushin, it has ways that it is similar to a tree and ways that it is similar to a vegetable. On one hand, it grows on a tree. On the other hand, the etrog tree needs irrigation and needs more water than just rainwater, and this is what makes it similar to a vegetable. So the question is, what happens if you have an esrog that reached maturity, what's called chanata, where it is already discernible as a fruit before Shemitah year? This is a question today for our sukkahs, right? There are etrogim right now, thousands of them all around Eretz Yisrael that look like etrogim already, but they're going to be picked on the Shemitah year. So the Rambam is machmir that etrogim, even etrogim that were ready before the Shemitah year, you have to declare them ownerless if they're going to be picked during the Shemitah year. However, that doesn't mean, even though the person has a mitzvah to declare them ownerless, but that doesn't mean that anybody can just walk in necessarily and take them, because maybe, since there's a machlokas, and some hold that they're really considered 6th year etrogim and not 7th year etrogim. So therefore, you can't just go in and grab them yourself, because since there's a machlokas, and we have a general economic rule, hamotzi mechaveiro olav haraya. If you want to take something from someone, you have to prove that you are right. But if the law itself is undecided completely, and we're just machmir, so the person has to declare it ownerless, but the people want to come and take it, well, the owner could say, prove to me that the halacha is that you have a right to take it. They can't prove it all the way because there's a mamish standing argument on it. So we have a funny situation where they have to declare it ownerless, but they have to have permission to come in and take them. That's the way it works for this year. For next year, there won't be argument, because for next year, the esrogim definitely will have mostly reached their maturity during the Shemitah year, and then they'll be picked in the 8th year. But that doesn't matter. They definitely considered to have kedushas shvis, and we're going to spend time on that again when we come back to the issue of the holiness of Shemitah. Here, in terms of the declaration of ownerlessness, the bottom line is the owner does have to declare them ownerless, but he can restrict access to them in this year. Many, by the way, okay, we'll get to it later, but many, by the way, hold that the best thing for this year is to actually pick the esrog before Rosh Hashanah. That way you don't have any questions. Definitely that won't have the holiness of Shvis that way. The trouble is that it might dry out between that time and Sukkot. So we'll get to that. We're going to discuss this argument again when we get to the topic of the holiness of Shvis, of the fruits. Okay. What about the entrance? Like, for instance, for me, I have this tiny little garden and it's my backyard. The only way to get there is to walk through my house because it's like an apartment, and that's the only way to get there. We have to walk through my house. So how does that work? So, first of all, if there's a direct entrance from the street, not like my apartment, if there's a direct entrance, there's an argument whether it needs to be left open 24 hours a day, or you can put a sign up and say between 2 and 5 in the afternoon, anyone can come in. So even on Shabbos and on Yantif, you have to allow access, even though it's forbidden for Jews to pick them on Shabbos and Yantif, but animals need to be able to come in also. Okay. Okay. So, sorry, where was it again? Sorry. Oh, here, backyard and roof. If the parish feasts are in the backyard, on the roof, or any place that you have to walk through the house to reach them, that's like my case, you do not have to leave the front door of your house open the entire year. You don't have to leave your front door open the whole year, right? You might have thought, people need to be able to get to my backyard. I'll just leave my door open all year. You don't have to do that. A sign should be put up saying that it is possible to come in and pick the produce. That's enough. That's good enough. Anyone who wants to come in, if you put a sign up. It's only permissible to not allow access to where the fruits are when you're worried that animals. So on the one hand, we want to allow access to animals. On the other hand, if there's fruits that are fit for human consumption, then the human beings have to be given preference. So if the person is worried that animals will come, then you can block the animals from coming and eating the fruits that are designated for people. Or if someone knows that someone might come and vandalize or ruin the fruits, then also it is permissible to lock the door. Or if you know that children might just come in and mess it up. Okay, that basically covers the halachas of how to make the fruit hefker. Any questions or thoughts? Okay, Gavaldik Mamish, thank you so much. Saving my life every day. To be the best Elul and the best.
Thank you so much.
See you,